Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to the Urban Refuge reunion. Of all the projects I've worked on, this is the one that I'm most proud of, and it's the one in many ways that I've done the least on because it's the students who've brought all of the energy and the commitment and achievement. Today is a special program because I'm really delighted to welcome the alumni well, I should take a step back and say, this is the project we're going to talk about, Urban Refuge, started in a classroom. And so we have some of the alumni who were part of that original class in 2016, alongside students from this year who are involved in the same class. And because we have a packed schedule, I've asked everyone to speak for no more than 5 minutes. And actually, maybe Ashley can time me starting now so that I am held to that same standard. And I've asked everyone to say three things for me and the alumni, which are, what have you done? Maybe just one thing. What have you learned, even if it's just one thing? And then what keeps you involved after all of these years? From the current students, you'll meet them in their teams. They've also prepared very tightly practiced and polished 5-minute presentations. And those will be answering the first two of those questions. So what have you done and what have you learned? So what is this project? I'll tell you what I did leading up to starting the class, and then hand it over to the students to talk about the development since that class started. So in many ways, it's really interesting and kind of depressing, but also timely that we have this class again when we're about to have another Trump administration. In many ways, that was part of the impetus for the class to begin with. And what the interest for me was, how do I get students to work together across borders and think about not just critiquing policies or writing policy recommendations to national policymakers who may not implement them and have no interest in implementing them when it comes to questions of migration, because part of the issue is the nation state system as a structure. And so how do we engage ourselves as an experiment of thinking about other ways of impacting policies? And so the interest came from also a forced migration human trafficking initiative at the Pardee School that many of the people in this room were part of, including Vicky, and I see Zach Crawford was there with us. Thank you for coming. And so the name of the class was just a topics class, and we turned it into a forced migration and human trafficking policy incubator. And the interest, part of the impetus for this cross-cultural aspect came from a State Department grant, the Stevens Initiative. And so I applied to that my first year at Pardee and asked for $1 million and got zero. And that was a repeating pattern over the years of asking and getting rejected. And I think, there's many things I've learned, but one of the things that I've really learned is how important centers in the university can be. And I would like to especially thank the Initiative of Cities, and Stacy Fox is here. Thank you, Initiative of Cities. From day one, as we were getting all of these rejections, Initiative of Cities was like, yeah, this is kind of a weird project. It's sort of teaching, it's sort of research, it's sort of policy, but it's creative. And, we have these seed funding. And so they helped sustain, they were a lifeline from the beginning till the end. I'm going to say, you'll see that I don't want to give the punchline of what happened after the class, but I'll say that some of the critical partners that we had throughout, not only did Initiative of Cities help us with several seed grants, they also really put us in touch with people and partners, both nonprofit and profit. And so we're really grateful to them. On what have I done? I set up the class. We didn't have a formal grant or anything to do the cross-cultural dimension, but the students were paired up with Syrian and Jordanian students in Amman. And part of that was done through my mom's friend who, had a nonprofit, and then we brought together students who were similar age. So everything was kind of ad hoc and informal, and it was supposed to just be an experiment of thinking in a different way. And I never, ever expected it to continue past that. initial semester, let alone into what it's become. And so I'm not going to go on and on. I'll just say what I've learned, and it's still the most fascinating aspect of this work for me, is that as an instructor, my students can learn things that that are not coming from me, and that I don't even have the knowledge of. So you will see students presenting on things like tech or marketing or business that I'm not trained in and that I've learned from them. And that is, I think, the difference between an independent scholar and having, your knowledge base and trying to transmit that versus being in an ecosystem of an amazing university like ours that has 17 colleges and schools and incredible centers like the Initiative Cities. So this is really a kind of a celebration of the larger community and how many people have helped us over the years. And so what keeps me involved actually has been the way that everyday people who have nothing to do with me or my students have decided that they're going to help. This has been often people who anonymously donate or who roll up their sleeves and spend their time helping us. So one of the people that I'd like to thank is actually Cynthia Cohen. If you don't know that name, you know BU Innovate. She's the mastermind behind that. She's a BU alum who heard about this project and came on a weekend and consulted with us and helped us. There were so many people like that who decided that you don't have to have a connection to BU in order to do something. And there's something about these students that inspires action. And so I found that inspirational. And I think that every time I thought, we can't really do this, I wasn't going to be the one. When I saw my students believing themselves and other people believing them, I wasn't going to be the one to say no. And so that's what's kept me sustained over the years. So I'm going to tell you, we started that classroom and I asked them, the challenge was, if you could support, again, thinking away from national governments and into the local, and if you could support the frontline communities that are hosting migrants, whether they're refugees or any legal status, what would you build if you could support them? And this is what they came up with.
Many of my people's life were ripped apart because of the fighting in Syria. Some fled to cities in Jordan without jobs, abandoned, alone, except for one thing: access to a cell phone.
The cell phone has become a literal lifeline. Urban Refuge is an app for refugees who are living in Jordan currently. That's our first test market. And what the app does is that it locates aid on a map. Sounds like a very simple idea, but it's actually very powerful because there is no comprehensive, accessible database of aid locations for refugees. And so what the app actually does is it simply maps this out in a very easy to understand format: Arabic, English, other languages. And it makes it so that refugees actually can choose what aid they access.
It's giving them the right to choose, which is something that doesn't really happen too often when you're a refugee, because part of it is that a lot of choices are made for you. And this is bringing back agency to you. You can find exactly what you're looking for. You can do it instead of it just coming down from the top.
We started with people, we turned it into data, and then we moved from that to actually people again.
We've built a Xamarin application that works on Android and iOS. It talks to a backend web service in Azure that then talks to a SQL database that stores all the information.
It's modular enough that I can share my code and have a native app for iOS, Android, and Windows. And for the localization piece as well, I can have all of that code and all of those resources for different languages in one folder, one file, one code base, one code set, and I can just promote that to each platform.
I don't have to be a software engineer to have ideas about what I want software to do. And just having someone who's a really good listener and understands our project and constantly looked for feedback from me was amazing, because we got the app that we dreamed of.
We are not just refugees. We are doctors and lawyers, engineers. So if you really want to help Syrian people, start thinking about them as people, not just only refugees.
It's amazing to see so much passion and be able to take that and translate it into technology that's going to change people's lives.
So if you're wondering how we got to Microsoft, that was also the Initiative in Cities. Thank you, Initiative in Cities. And I'm going to hand it over. I just would like to thank everyone who helped us sponsor this particular event, especially again, the Initiative of Cities, Pardee School of Global Studies, and Ashley Bermudez, who's handled all of the logistics with such grace as always. Thank you, Ashley. And also the Center for Forced Displacement has been really key. So I'd like to thank them and now hand it over to Vicky.
That was a beautiful introduction. I haven't watched that video in a really long time, so hopefully my stage presence has only gotten better with some time. But I'm Vicky Kelber. I was originally involved in the class as Professor Laurie's graduate assistant. So helped her to write many of the grants for which we got rejected. And thankfully, a couple of the grants that we luckily received, and helped to really give the class some wings. And my roles were many with the organization. I think the one that I had when we did the Microsoft video was our first CEO, because that was the point that we decided to take the project out of the classroom and keep going with it, despite the fact that I think almost all of us graduated that year. And so that was the first role that I held. And now I'm on the board of advisors with these lovely folks that you see up here. So what have I learned from Urban Refuge? Well, the lessons are far too many for a 5-minute introduction. But I'll say that, you heard a lot about us getting rejected in the early days and continuing through today. And I think you'll often hear, don't take no for an answer. And that is simply not practical when you think about the fact of these big organizations like the State Department. You can't exactly go knock on their door and say, I'm not taking no for an answer. But I think for me, the real lesson in all those rejections is don't take no for an ending. If you have a good idea and you have belief in that idea, and you have your belief in yourself and your friends and your peers, you're going to face a lot of rejection. That's just part of it. Failure is a part of it. Rejection is a part of it. So don't take those no's for a reason to cut yourself off from even trying in the first place. And I'm so glad that despite getting rejected from that first grant, we were just remembering last night that we both said, whatever, we're going to do the class anyways. We're going to figure it out as we go. We've got this. And then what keeps me engaged, for me, Urban Refuge really set me on a different course in my own career. I later have gone on to lead data science and technology teams with 2 degrees in international relations. And I think as part of that, don't take no for an ending, there's a lot of walls that you'll see thrown up in some of these fields like data science and technology, especially if you happen to be, for instance, a woman. And I think acknowledging that there are folks that might stand in your way. One of the things that I learned from Urban Refuge is that technology is a place for me too. And so I keep engaged with the students that are part of this class and have been part of this project since then, because I feel like it's the least I can do for a project that truly gave me my career. So a huge thanks to all of you for being here and for participating in these important classes and this important work.
That was only 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay, it's competition. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Lopez Gonzalez. I was in the original class that Professor Laurie taught back when most of us were seniors at the Pardee School. And I really started first kind of, incubating the idea with the rest of the team. After Vicky stepped down as CEO, I kind of took the realm in our, I guess we can call it our nonprofit era, when we were trying to become our own 501c3. And with the help of another person who's not here today, Lauren, we were able to achieve that. I remember, going to Chase and opening up a bank account, which is kind of hilarious now to think about it. But all those skills were really helpful because I currently work in nonprofit operations, and being able to start an organization from scratch after Pardee kind of incubated us, it was a great experience to have that, I still take on to this day. I would say and then I transitioned onto the board of directors as well. I would say the most interesting thing that I learned through the experience was just how quickly it is to pivot. I was always really impressed with this group. We first started in Amman, Jordan, Then we went on to Turkey when we got an opportunity to work with refugees there. We went to California. We were just always constantly pivoting, and Professor Lori teaching this class again and bringing on new students is another great pivot that the app has taken. And so I'm always really constantly impressed how no matter what obstacles come in our way, we're always constantly shifting and just making it work, because we know that forced displacement is a real thing that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah.
Wow, 1 minute 45. Great.
Just gonna keep getting shorter and shorter. Hi, I'm Taylor Estaghini. I was also one of the original students in the 2016 class. I think, as a lot of us could probably say, did a lot of different things. I think a lot of I think originally I was on the legal research team, but kind of pitched into grant writing and some of the sort of organization of the data that we had on different organizations. And some of the original logo design. I wasn't the designer, but I was on the team. And yeah, just being able to kind of try on a lot of different hats during the class and afterwards as part of the board of directors was something that I really enjoyed doing. And I think probably the biggest thing that I learned through all of this is similar to what Sarah just said, being able to and being not afraid to try different things and reach out to people, ask for their opinion, ask for their help. And, the worst thing someone can say is no, or the best thing that they could do is help you or refer you to other connections that'll be helpful for the goals that you want to reach. And I think the reason why I've stayed involved is it's been so wonderful to kind of stay in touch with all the amazing women and other, people that have helped this project come to life. And B, because the reason I joined as a student was because I wanted to kind of apply a lot of the research and the writing and the studies that I had accumulated over the couple of years of being in the Purdue School and apply it to something tangible. And it's really interesting. It's really great to see that obviously it's a class again and get to see that happen for a whole new crop of students has just been awesome. Yeah.
Ellie is director of operations for the governor, and she got a call, so she's in DC. So she sends her regards, but we're moving on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Delaney. I was also part of the initial class, and I can remember I had a course with Professor Lori in my freshman year or my sophomore year fall, and she brought up this idea that she was doing, and I really wanted to be a part of it. And something that stood out to me, I think I might have been maybe one of the youngest by years in our class at the time, and honestly, every single time felt like an honor because I was surrounded by so many smart, accomplished, and just inspiring people, women working toward a common goal. And that's something that really stuck out to me in the class. And I also have had, a variety of different roles on the team, but ultimately I think what it comes down to is everyone just doing their part to advance the goal, whether that's through different phases of the project when we were in class, NGO, the current iteration, and so on. But like I said, that was a really amazing opportunity, I felt, to do something different. And as Professor Lori said, really be hands-on on something. I would say one of the biggest things that I learned from the project is really being okay with the process. And I feel like sometimes in life, particularly now in a work setting in my day-to-day, I feel like we're very quick to try to just get to the solution, but sometimes the solution is really everything that happens in between, and being okay with something that's in progress and shifting and turning and pivoting, like that's all okay. And honestly, I think that's what brings back memories. And similarly to you, Vicky, I haven't seen that video in a really long time. But that being said, that is something that I think that is a major takeaway that I use in my day to day. Like, I'm not afraid to sort of say, well, what if we do this? Like, let's experiment. Like, let's try a different path and see where it ends out. Also, I would say something that has kept being a theme and an underline is just this idea of relationships, whether that's with different portions of campus, like the Initiative on Cities. That was part of my work study when I was on campus. So it was really great to kind of see all of these areas of my life as a student kind of converging together. And the reason that I stay involved is truly the people. Like, I am so inspired, like, by everyone that's up here right now, and they have directly impacted not just how I view the world, but also how I approach different things. I want to know what's happening in everyone's life. And I feel like, us coming together even the day before, just seeing what everyone is doing has just been such a highlight. Like, I feel like I'm on like 200% battery, and like, it's amazing. So, that is what I take away. And like I said, I'm happy to be here. And it's wild to think that it's 2016 to now, but it is, and it's great. So thank you.
Also under 3 minutes. Everyone's going so fast.
That's okay. I will take the extra 15 minutes. I can talk if you know me. Hopefully, let's see. So I started out also with a class of Professor Laurie's, but a couple of years later than the rest of this group. So a different class, not actually on urban refuge, but I learned about urban refuge and also forced migration, refugees, human trafficking, all of that from this course. And I was so inspired by this professor that I wanted to learn how I could get more involved, possibly do a Europe study. I don't know if it's still called that, but it was in my time. And Professor Laurie told me about urban refuge, and I was like, yes, this is the thing for me. I want to do this. So after that class, the way that I really kicked off my work with Urban Refuge is that we took this app and really beta tested it for the first time in Istanbul. So we were on the ground in Turkey working with communities of Syrian refugees, and just making a quick bridge to why I stay involved. I mean, really seeing how excited people Syrian refugees who were in Turkey, who had been through horrible tragedies to get where they were, how excited they were to see that these college students in America wanted to do something for them, were creating something real and tangible and supportive for them. I saw that in Turkey. I saw it again later on when I launched the app in California. You don't forget that feeling and that connection that you build with people when you're working on a common solution across oceans. So sorry to jump ahead, but that's definitely a big reason that I stay involved, and a big part of what kind of hooked me after that very first research study that I did with Professor Laurie. But since then, end of 2018, I believe, I inherited this mantle and I became CEO of Urban Refuge. I stayed CEO until last year. And during that time, as I mentioned, in addition to Istanbul, we also launched in California, in New York, where I'm based, and we also started building out the app in Beirut and in Cairo. Those did not launch, unfortunately, but we have a lot of the data collection done, and that was a really fascinating journey as well. We did a whole lot of work, from hiring project managers, from updating the interface and the UX and evolving that a bit, to building out a huge data repository. We went through a couple of different CTOs, so the tech behind this app actually evolved a few times. And speaking of this idea of, I was someone who didn't realize that STEM was something that could be for me until it had to be for me, because as we transitioned from CTO to CTO, I had to be that common thread of, okay, so I think this is how you actually add data to the app. So I kind of got thrown into STEM through this. A big thing that I was really personally proud of and excited about was, I come from a marketing background now in my work, and we launched a campaign called I Am More that was really special to us in our both as far as a marketing project, but also in terms of one of the main reasons I love this project is, yes, we're connecting refugees to aid, but we're also prioritizing breaking this stigma. As one of the founders in our video said, we were showing people that refugees are not just this title of refugee, but also doctors, lawyers, engineers, mothers, fathers, sisters, very brave, powerful people with their own agency. And so the I Am More campaign really told the stories of refugees who were either working on the apps, had supported us with our beta testing, or were just friends in our circles that we hung out with and ate at the GSU with and went to conferences with. And really just the goal was to humanize the people that we were trying to work with and support as well. On top of that, we did pitch competitions. From Spark and Innovate all the way to Madrid with the Resolution Project. So that was also a really great journey to be able to actually represent Urban Refuge on a global stage. So that's a little bit of my journey. And now, since I left the CEO role, I transitioned to becoming president of the board of directors. So I get to work with these amazing ladies, at least on a monthly basis. As far as what I've learned, in addition to getting thrown into this STEM world, definitely managing and building an organization from the ground up. So yes, there was a lot of learning about refugee aid and the international relations side of it. But I think, honestly, a lot of what I did really translated over and was part of what inspired me to go back and get my MBA, actually, because, yeah, it takes knowledge of refugees and forced migration to be able to do something like this. But it also took, that business savvy and knowing marketing and STEM and all of these areas. So, building a business plan, all of that was some of the first times that I'd done that work until I got over to my MBA. And that was huge and it was really such an inspiring moment. But also that idea of pivoting. I had the joy of bringing Urban Refuge through COVID and the Trump era aid cuts on a lot of our partners like the IRC. So it was also kind of like dragging this organization through some really, really challenging times that, were unprecedented, for lack of a better word, that everyone's sick of. So all of that was really, really transformative. And then as far as, I guess, why I stay connected. I mean, I cannot say enough how amazing it has been to work with a group of young women who are passionate about giving back and impacting change on a STEM solution. That's not something you see often. Even in the corporate worlds where my 9 to 5 is, you don't see a group of all women, all millennial women working on something that is an app that is STEM related and driving that and pushing it forward into the world. That is so unique. And so that has been incredibly special to me. But also something that I've taken away from this is the idea that if you're very passionate about something, it doesn't have to be your 9 to 5. You might, need to be in a corporate job for various reasons. But if you're passionate enough about it and you really care about it, you can absolutely continue impacting that change in, the 5 to 9 that you have after you leave that job that you're doing because you need the money or because you have, for whatever reason, you can still continue supporting refugees, saving the planet, whatever it is that you're passionate about with all the rest of the time that you have. And if you're very intentional about it, you can even bring that into the spaces that you're in, whether it's school or work. In the last year, MasterCard has actually joined, which is where I work, has joined the US Council on Refugees. And so now I actually get to do refugee work in my 9 to 5 too, which is not something I ever expected to be able to do. But now we've done everything from, volunteering locally with organizations like Hearts and Homes for Refugees, which is the in New York that helped us launch in New York, all the way to hosting career development or panels and workshops for Ukrainian, Syrian, and so on refugees. So I guess my takeaway is just be very intentional about the things that you're passionate about, because even if it's not something you get to do all day, every day, you can still continue to be very, very impactful toward it and bring it with you into all of the spaces that you're in. So in conclusion, just thank you to all of you who set this stage and paved the path for me to then be able to join this path with you, to Professor Laurie for first creating this class and bringing it back to this to a class which feels really like the perfect repository for Urban Refuge, because students have always been, and young people have always been what have driven this organization and kind of give it life. And thank you to all of you who are now giving it life. And we're so, so excited to see what you've come up with. So big, big thank you.
And as I transition to this year's teams, I'll just say, Raina mentioned some of the exogenous challenges, right? COVID, Trump administration, changes in the nonprofit funding for partners on the ground, you saw very clearly how hierarchized those relations are, what happens to staff who are international versus local versus staff who have a refugee status. Like we've learned a lot from some of those exogenous challenges, but as Reina also alluded to, one of the things that's also been challenging is thinking about the endogenous challenges of like an organization and how you run it. And one thing Cynthia kept telling us was, a nonprofit is still a business. You still have to have a business model. And that's actually been one of the hardest things, is like thinking about every tech decision is also an ethical decision that has real research implications as well. And this kind of back and forth between the business side and the tech side. And the fact is, all of us have full-time jobs. And so this became like our after school project until today. You know, we meet in the evenings or on the weekends. And as we were feeling like it was really hard to continue having that kind of life in the project, we decided, instead of kind of giving up, why don't we go back to some of the roots of how this started and try bringing it back to the classroom and asking students. One of the things that some of the challenges that we had as an independent nonprofit is, tax filing and accounting and all sorts of things that you don't have to deal with when you're in the breadth of BU, and you have all those resources that we really took for granted what it means to be as part of a university and a group within that university. And so the challenge to these students was, how do we bring this back to BU? How do we make sure that there's always students working on this in the same way that you have Model United Nations or other student groups? Those projects don't end when students graduate. And so how do you help us build this longevity? And we also saw that increasingly people are very kind of nervous about downloading apps. And we also don't track anything on the back end. That's always been an issue with donors, is we really have very little information collected about users on purpose. And so one of the things that there are also challenges to think about a different modality and potentially a website. So I will stop talking and now hand it over to our research and operations team.
All right, thank you, Professor Laurie, and thank you to everybody. It was wonderful to hear all of your introductions. So my name is Emma. I represent the Research and Operations team on the Executive Board. As you guys have all heard, this course represents an innovative approach to policymaking and advocacy. It has challenged us as students to bridge the gap between the real world and academia as we learn about the complex policy challenges in the world of forced migration, not just through lenses of theory, but also by engaging with folks working on the ground. As the Research and Operations team, our main mission for this semester has been to build a comprehensive database of resources that serve refuge-seeking and displaced populations in the greater Boston area. By the end of the semester, we're hoping to have made contact with between 40 and 50 organizations, as we are sharing the Urban Refuge mission to strengthen resources for the populations that need it the most. So through this work, we're embodying the course's commitment to user-centric design of the website, which we'll eventually talk about, and also the real-world impact. We are not just learning about forced migration, but we are actively contributing to the solutions, we are fostering partnerships, and we are carrying forward the vision of Urban Refuge as a platform for meaningful change. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Anusha. And given that we are helping bring Urban Refuge to Boston, we decided to do some preliminary research on the composition of immigrants and refugees in the Boston area, as well as the organizations that serve them. So far, this information has given us a much better understanding of how to adapt Urban Refuge to the city. For example, we learned of which languages are most commonly spoken in Boston and should be prioritized for translation on the website. Additionally, we learned of which neighborhoods to target when searching for organizations to partner with. And one article that focused on the political and urban geography of immigrant services in Boston, gave us a nice overview of the common factors that contribute to immigrants' difficulties in accessing aid, as well as the common groups of immigrants that often are left, behind in service provision. And having done all of this background research, we are better poised to ensure that this platform is effective in connecting resources and aid to the most vulnerable in Boston. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia. So within our research and operations team, we created 4 different subgroups to focus on different resources while researching our organizations, which are basic needs, legal services, careers and jobs, and community building and education. The basic needs sub-team focuses on finding organizations that provide food, housing, and healthcare needs, both mental and physical health. The careers and jobs team caters to career services, employment resources, and job preparation skills for immigrants. The legal services team provides immigrants with organizations dealing with the citizenship process, refugee resettlement, and legal assistance for any different needs. And the community building and education services equip immigrants with organizations that help with English as a second language classes, community counseling, and case management.
Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine. And another crucial part of adapting Urban Refuge to Boston for the research team was first researching the existing services and resources that are providing something similar to what we aim to offer already. And so we wanted to do that just to ensure that we weren't attempting to redo existing work of organizations and people who have been doing this for years and have experience in Boston with these communities. So doing this was critical for one, seeing what we could learn from these resources and whether we could actually integrate them in any way into our model, but then also seeing, I guess, how we could differentiate ourselves from those resources and what Urban Refuge could actually bring to the existing landscape of immigrant services here. So some of the things that we noticed when we were doing this research were that while some resources were sort of difficult to locate online and thus probably not the most accessible for our target communities, others did prioritize this. And while some were, maybe they had a financial barrier for NGOs or CBOs who wanted to access their software, others did not. And so these findings were things that we just wanted to keep in mind when building our platform.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I'm going to talk a little more in depth about the field work we did a few weeks ago. So initially our goal was to be able to meet with a few organizations either via Zoom or in person to find out a little bit more in depth about the services they provide, the primary demographics they're serving, any other additional services they think are most needed by the refugee community in Boston, and also most importantly how they thought Urban Refuge would be able to benefit their organization. So Anusha and I ended up going out to see 3 organizations, just see if they would be able to have an impromptu meeting. We first went and saw Action for Boston Community Defense, which we were able to speak to someone at the front desk, but they didn't have exactly the answers we were looking for. However, they were able to give us the names of people that they thought would best be able to answer our questions. And then next, we went to Project Citizenship and Kids in Need of Defense, which were right around the corner in the same building. However, we weren't able to speak to anyone without an appointment scheduled. But what we did learn at first is we were a little disappointed in our results. However, we learned that even just getting these observations through going out, things like, oh, you need an appointment, oh, you things like that is a form of field work, and that is giving us valuable insight into these organizations. So through that, we really found out a lot more than we actually expected about these organizations. Then on the other side of that, a few of our team members worked more on the spreadsheet, just making sure it was up to date, it was really comprehensive, because like we said, this is the basis for the Urban Refuge website. It's a comprehensive list of all of the organizations that we intend to map on the website and has basic information such as their location, the services they provide, their hours, and things like that that will be really vital to getting this website up and running.
Hello, my name is Dora. This is my partner Julia. We worked on the workforce development part of the research, and one of the major nonprofits we're working with is JVS Boston. Some of you may know them. They're a chapter of the larger National Jewish Vocational Services. And so this past week, we met with the community partnership strategist as part of field work. The goal of JVS is to essentially get the client a full-time job position with benefits, and they use a pipeline model in which they partner with employers to prepare a client for a job. And there was a lot that we learned from doing this field work, specifically that there are a lot of barriers to doing this kind of work, and a lot of those barriers these organizations have no control over. They tend to be government obstacles and restrictions, and just trying to serve the mass influx of clients is really hard without burning out career coaches. So, for example, there's been a wait list for English classes, and access to work permits, housing, and childcare services have been limited due to these government obstacles.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julia. And so our fieldwork was eye-opening in that, and it made clear what one of the primary goals of Urban Refugees is, which is to break down those barriers and facilitate partnership and communication between refugees and agencies and organizations such as JVS, despite governmental obstacles. We've come to realize that it's quite difficult to address these challenges when there are these various government obstacles in doing so, like social services and public fundings. But still, urban refugees can serve as a means to find resources more efficiently, like JVS and other organizations. And in turn, we can spread refugee service more appropriately. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Anissa. As part of our fieldwork, Emma and I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Waldo Immigration and Refugee Services, which is a nonprofit that provides comprehensive immigration services in Boston. Upon learning about Urban Refuge's mission, Maka, who's the founder of Waldo, was ecstatic at the prospects of forming a partnership and was willing to do whatever she could to help. She actually was even able to attend our last class session last week, providing valuable insights and answering all of our questions about the organization's journey, the challenges they faced, and the barriers they encountered while providing resources in Boston to their clients. From our meeting and discussions with Maka, we learned about the several key challenges their organizations face, as well as other nonprofits, in which Maka highlighted financial barriers being one of them, tied to limited funding, as well as shortages of ESL teachers and staff. In addition to this, Maka emphasized the importance in providing services such as job training and financial literacy, which aided our team in ensuring that we are providing and searching and loading resources into our database that offer a range of services, not just limited to one, but all communities in Boston. With that said, our team is really looking forward to seeing all of our work this semester come to fruition, and I would now love to pass it over to the tech team.
I'll say before the tech team goes that no one wanted to be part of the tech team initially. And so I'm very proud that they stepped up, and they'll tell you what they've done.
Good evening, everyone. So we're the technology team of Urban Refuge. I'm Zoe Brown. I'm currently a senior.
I'm Senadia Vigny. I am a fifth year BA MA student.
I'm Shafal Tarek, and I'm a senior. I'm Olivia. I'm a junior.
I'm Daria. I'm a senior.
And just fun fact to what Professor Lori had just said, all of us did not want to be on the technology team at first, and altogether we have little to no coding experience, but regardless, we've kind of pushed through, and we do have a demo video of the website to show you at the end of our presentation. But other than the hardship of knowing how to learn to code and like trying to figure out how to build this website, we also faced some hardships when it came to our field work. We tried to reach out to many organizations, but we were getting little to no responses. Like, we didn't know where to start, and so I feel like most of our time was kind of like a waiting period. But we've pushed through, as I've said, and we're excited to kind of recap everything we've learned, what we've done, how we grappled with these challenges, and of course our website. So I will pass it off to Senadina.
So in terms of what we've been able to do, we've made a lot of strides in a short amount of time. We've been able to firstly take advantage of the different partners that we have. Even though we personally don't know how to code, we were able to take advantage of BU partners and partners outside of BU. So for our fieldwork day, we spent our time on campus realizing that the opportunities and all the things that we were looking for were actually right next to us. So we went to Spark, took advantage of the new CBS building, going on every floor, spreading the good word about Urban Refuge and meeting CTOs, Chief Technology Officers, to any professors who would have an open door and listen to us. So that's what we did, and it was a good fieldwork and a good team bonding experience. And then secondly, reaching out to external actors, we were able to meet with Bari, so a representative at the Boston Area Research Initiative, and also IINE, so the International Institute of New England, to learn more about the needs of the organizations that we will be helping through this website. And I think that was really effective.
Yeah, and I would say the most exciting thing that we've done so far is select the hackathon winners, who are now our CTOs, and we'll be working with them to pick up where they left off and make the website the best it can be. We have a few adjustments we want to make, such as adding more images and reducing the amount of text to make it as the most accessible for beneficiaries, and we'll be working on that with guidance from our very talented CTOs. Daria and Olivia are going to be touching on this topic a bit more, but as we've mentioned, prior to joining the tech team, we had very little coding experience, so connecting with students and organizations has been a really crucial step in the process.
Hello, everyone. So what did we learn is that it's never too late to learn how to code and that you're capable of handling things outside of your comfort zone. In all honesty, as we were saying, when we signed up to join the tech team, only one of us had it as our first choice. After some convincing from Professor Laurie to step out of our comfort zones, we finally all stepped up to the plate. In the beginning, we didn't really know where to start, but with one step at a time, we leaned on our resources and we leaned on each other, and we began building toward a new website. After many CTO recruitment trials, we were lucky enough to meet our amazing new CTOs, Marvin Huang, Wilson Wei, and Alan Eng, at Boston Hacks, who brilliantly designed a prototype website that we are currently in the process of finalizing and launching. In September, we had no idea where to begin when we were met with the task of developing a website by December. But with teamwork, moving one step at a time and email at a time, we've learned we could truly take on any task.
In addition to making the most of our resources, we've also had to learn how to code. So we've been using Code Academy to learn languages like HTML, JavaScript, and React. But we've also learned the secret to doing hard things, which is not whether or not you know how to do hard things, but whether you're willing to learn them. So on that note, without further ado, we'll show the video.
Are you gonna sing?
We'll probably be adding a few more pages up there as well. This is what it looks like. You can filter for different kinds of organizations. You can click on specific resources and go to their websites. And then you can also go back to the homepage and then get directions from there.
And this is again all thanks to Marvin, Allen, and Wilson, who in 24 hours put this together, and we're continuing to work with them. So.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing about the hackathon. So we the challenge for the tech team, I told them, you don't have to have the skills, but you have to be willing to go out and learn them or find some other way of getting the tech. And so part of the challenge, we heard about the hackathon had missed the deadline by over a month. And then the day before, or less than 48 hours before, one of the members of the tech team, Shafaf, talked to someone who was going to be at the hackathon, and they said, look, we don't have a project, we'd work on it. And so through some, as we say in Arabic, wasla, social capital with Spark and Ziba Kramer, we ended up getting in at the very last minute. But it meant that we had no, we weren't ready for what it means to be a sponsor of a hackathon. The other tables had like big screens, monitors, electric scooters, banners, and then it was us. To the credit of these students, we found out on Halloween. I sent an email at 3 p.m. and I said, emergency meeting, 7 p.m. tonight. I want every team there. Every team showed up. The hackathon was 9 a.m. on a Saturday for the beginning, 9 a.m. for the judging. I said, I want every team present at the beginning and at the ending, and we had every team present on the hackathon. And you would think we had allocated a $300 prize from our crowdfunding, and randomly, right before our project was announced, I asked someone for a chair, thinking that they worked for the Center for Forced Displacement, Center for Data Sciences. And that person, who is still kind of unknown to us, decided that he was going to up our prize. And so instead of $300, we had a $1,000 prize to give to the hackathon winners. And Marvin and his team are the ones who won it. And my favorite part about this is part of the challenge for the hackathon teams, we had 7 teams compete, was who could build a platform that my IR students could maintain. So that was part of the technical challenge, is building something that is low code or no code, and putting instructions. And so we're really grateful to that. And that's one of the examples of where it's very clear to me, I have nothing to do with the transmission of knowledge, but it's really exciting to see it. So I've already gone over and broken my own rules. Here we go, the business team.
Hello, everyone. We're the business team. My name is Sophia.
My name is Sonia.
And yeah, so much like the other teams, we had little to no experience with like the business side of things. I personally just know econ. That's it. But as a business team, we knew we needed to learn about the ins and outs of running a nonprofit, especially from the business side of things. And since none of us had prior experience, it was really important for us to have this information. So we decided to reach out to organizations to get a better behind the scenes look of how to operate a business that is a nonprofit. It was very humbling, but also incredibly rewarding. After multiple failed phone calls, emails, and a lot of types of communication, we felt very discouraged, but we knew we had to keep pushing forward. So ultimately, our persistence paid off, and we discovered that sometimes you have to take an unconventional path to get to your overall goal. The experience taught us a lot, and we keep an open mind when thinking about continuing with our connections from the business side of things to be able to communicate with other people.
Our communication with these nonprofit organizations showed us how important it is to be persistent and get your foot through the door by going and visiting their facilities. Meeting with these organizations face to face was an opportunity for us to receive invaluable information that we weren't necessarily able to attain when we attempted to contact them via email or over the phone. It was a chance for us to understand what their mission was, what values that they had, and what challenges that they were currently going through, and how they connected with our own sort of initiatives and sort of interests overall as an organization. Our engagement in these visits showed how important it is to remain committed to our mission in making the services that are provided to refugees very accessible. It provided an emphasis on the sort of potential that Urban Refuge has to expand by working with partners not only locally but also on the international level.
So the business team has also been transitioning from, or the organization, Urban Refuge, from a nonprofit organization to a student-run organization under the Students Activities Office at Boston University. As such, we have been creating a constitution that covers our purpose in the university and the global community. And we used our experiences in other student organizations to shape the language and how we envision on running it.
Participation of all the team members in the hackathon. We learned that fundings and investment to Urban Refuge does not have to only come from nonprofit organization, but can also come from enterprise in industries such as technology. This has opened opportunity for expansion into sectors that can help support our student group. At the same time, we are learning and planning to adopt a business to consumer model. That means our surveys will not only be beneficial for refugees that call cities home, but also for aid providers and government.
Our team is working diligently to advance Urban Refuge's mission by crafting a business plan that sharpens our initiative not only to best serve our beneficiaries, but also to ensure the long-term sustainability of Urban Refuge as an organization. We have also put a strong emphasis on refining our target audiences and other potential stakeholders in order to deliver not only a compelling deck pitch, but also updated one. Thank you. We'll be passing on the presentation to the marketing team.
Hi everyone, we are the marketing team. My name is Isabella Chaparro and I currently am an undergraduate student in the Party School and I'm serving as the executive of marketing for Urban Refuge this semester. Our goals this semester have focused on increasing our social media presence, engaging key stakeholders such as NGOs and potential volunteers, and also really educating the broader Boston community on the importance of a resource like Urban Refuge. So we are so excited to share everything we have been working on, and I'm now going to pass it on to Alessandra.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Alessandra. I'm an undergraduate student here at Party. And when it comes to Urban Refuge's visual and social identity, the first thing that the marketing team did was come together to refresh and innovate our image. The first thing we did was transform our logo from a simple 2 letters into a symbol that really represents our mission statement, which is putting aid on the map. Here it is here. Along with that, we also updated our color scheme, began developing more engaging social media posts, and created more shareable resources like our link tree and business cards. For us, rebranding has been all about clarity, accessibility, and reaching more people who both need our help and could help us.
So from our transition from nonprofit to student-run organization, we had to analyze how we would be marketing. So we had 2 strategies, doing external and internal marketing. With our external marketing, it was more so how do we project ourselves onto like this community outside of BU, and how we can essentially build that trust and credibility for like this student-run organization. And from the internal marketing, it's more so about that long-lasting legacy. You know, after you leave, we want other students to join as well, and we want that partnership and that increase in availability to ensure that there's going to be students that have that passion like we did in order to make sure this organization keeps on running after us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Barenshub. I'm an undergraduate student here at the Party School. And as we as Alexander mentioned, we were looking to extend the awareness and to our peers here at BU, because we want Urban Refuge to be able to live on through students once we all end up graduating eventually. So through this, we found the best approach for us was to sit in the GSU and just talk to our fellow students. So we passed out marketing materials and raised awareness for our cause. We also wanted to make sure that we were bolstering our social media presence as we are looking to rebrand and get that image out there. And also the transition from app to website is one that we wanted to share with as many people as possible. So that was a very successful outreach for us. We increased our social media following by about 21%, and we got a lot of interested students, and we shared our mission and they showed interest, and we told them how they could get involved, gave them our materials, and now we can stay connected to them for future interest. Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Erin.
Hi, my name is Erin, and I am a graduate student at Pardee. I participated with Alexander here in external marketing, and as external marketing team, we believe that it is important to enhance relationships with stakeholders in the community and focus on capacity building with new stakeholders in order to collectively strengthen the impact for as many beneficiaries as possible that use Urban Refuge in their resettlement processes, essentially driving forward innovative thinking and strategy for immigrants and refugees alike. To accomplish this, we've set out to distinguish the gaps in services to immigrants and refugees in the Boston area and to hopefully transform the resettlement process for immigrants, refugees, and service providers. After meeting with Ian from the INE, the International Institute of New England, hello Ian, I see you over there. He was extremely helpful in helping us find those gaps. Our findings show us the gaps with the services offered to immigrants as opposed to the services and resources inherently offered to designated refugees. As the Urban Refuge external marketing team expands, we will continue to enhance these relationships while tailoring our objectives to service both refugees and immigrants through capacity building with stakeholders by increasing accessibility not only to the website, but to the resources that we highlight in the Urban Refuge website, like access to civil surgeons, affordable housing, and employment opportunities to promote the more upward mobility among immigrants and refugees that are both our neighbors and friends.
Hi everyone, I'm Fatuh. I'm a graduate student at Pardee. So at the hackathon, the marketing team gained invaluable insights while collaborating with hackers on creating Urban Refuge's website. First, we worked closely with the tech team to understand their criteria for the website and translate the requirements into a concise, user-friendly flyer. We use bullet points to simplify complex ideas, making it easier for hackers to grasp our expectations. It was visually engaging, aligning with Boston Hacks' vibrant theme, while also staying authentic to Urban Refuge's brand. Secondly, throughout the event, we provided hands-on guidance to the hackers, emphasizing the dual importance of functionality and aesthetic appeal. A well-designed, visually pleasing website that aligns with our colors and theme makes navigation easier and enhances its marketability. Recognizing that some users might have limited literacy, we stressed the use of icons and visuals for intuitive navigation. A key takeaway from the hackathon was the crucial need for clear and simple communication about Urban Refuge's mission to build better engagement. Ultimately, we learned that simplicity, accessibility, and alignment with our brand are the keys to creating a successful website that meets both functional and marketing goals.
Lastly, we just want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you, Professor Laurie, for helping us put this together and drive forward, I think, all of our collective vision for both refugees and immigrants and the greater Boston community that does a great job at this so far.
We have this QR code here, and please feel free to scan it. Yeah, we would love to collaborate. So thank you.
And actually, shockingly, we are under time, and everyone heard from every single student in the class, and I think we're under time because there were no other professors. So that's what kept us kind of succinct. So we actually, I'd love to hear from anyone from the audience. There's some familiar faces, but new ones, and it doesn't, if you have any questions, but also any comments. As I mentioned, as the students mentioned, this is a QR code for people to sign up. So if you're a current BU student and you're considering that this might be something you're interested in, we will take any and all volunteers, and we're especially interested not just if you have a tech background, but if you're learning a language and be into helping us translate some of these resources, or a whole variety of other ways of getting involved. So I'll just open it up and see if anyone has any questions or comments.
Hi, I'm Kaya. My friend Anna and I are seniors at Boston Latin School, and we're doing a project on migration and homelessness through the Topol Fellowship for Peace and Nonviolence. And I was wondering what spurred the shift from the app to the website, and if somebody could talk a little bit about that.
Start, and then maybe someone from the current team wants to also say something, but sure. Well, I'll just say, something Professor Laurie mentioned is that it's challenging to maintain something like this when, to be honest, a lot of the people who raise their hands for an opportunity like this are not coders, as you can see from the current class who did not want to be on the tech team. So something that I really struggled with as CEO was we had, the Microsoft developed version of the app. Then we had a BU Spark developed version. Then, we didn't have a CTO when I came in. So I went out and recruited and found a CTO, but he then, completely reframed the app. And when he left, I posted on Instagram saying I have this opportunity, and one of my best friends from high school had a friend from home in Michigan who he connected to us. So, small world, how, these things happen. He's actually now one of my best friends from BU's best friend because of Urban Refuge, and we're going to the wedding and this whole thing. So anyway, the point is, it's challenging when you have a group of IR majors who don't necessarily know how to code to maintain an app. We did it for a few years, but one of our limiting factors for making the organization sustainable was always, I can't just go on easily, functionally, and update it as needed. And so the idea for the website, and the current group I'm sure can speak to this more, but is, a website is much easier to maintain. HTML code is much easier to learn than coding an entire app. So we always wanted to make this organization sustainable, and the app ultimately became a limiting factor. So I'll pass it over if anyone from the tech team.
2 points I'll also add to why the website is going to be a big step up from the app is privacy and accessibility. Privacy, because downloading an app has a lot more strings attached to it than would just be going on a website. And then in terms of accessibility, not many people have the newest iPhone or certain types of computers, whereas a website is very easy to go across different types of devices. And so, it just makes it a lot easier for people to get on the website, but also trust that we're not stealing their data.
And the other thing I'll say, for me, one of the two other things that I really enjoyed about the hackathon is I initially thought, wow, so my students are going to watch other teams get $1,000 for 24 hours worth of work, and they're doing a whole semester, and is this going to create resentment? And it is the opposite. My students stayed up all night, and I was getting messages like, I feel so bad. Can't they all get the money? Everyone's working so hard, So that was nice to see that sharing. But the other part of that sharing, and this came in the classroom afterwards, is that I think Marvin and the other CS students pushed my students to go beyond what would be like off-the-shelf tools like Squarespace or other existing tools, because the way they framed it is it's more fun to use, what's the other one? React, which I still don't know how to use or anything like that, but that's the whole point. And so I think that when there's the peer-to-peer kind of discovery of these tools, then it becomes more exploratory, and actually it does push you beyond the kind of off-the-shelf things that you can do. Other questions?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lorraine, and I'm here with my two colleagues, Giovanna and Esther. We are from the Brazilian Worker Center, so we are a visitor. It's really nice to be here. We received an email. I don't recall the name of the person who sent an email, but thank you so much. And we are here because it really came to our mind like, what's that? And here we are. So it's really incredible. I guess my question is, in a sense, of course, just introducing ourselves first. We are a nonprofit based in Austin, and we were the first family welcome center appointed by the Commonwealth. So right now, there's 3 family welcome center receiving all the refugee, all the migrants from, correct me if I'm wrong, 52 different countries. So in the past year, we served more than 16,000 individuals, more than 6,000 families, all seeking from different kind of services that you guys showed in the app, for example. I guess my question is in a sense of, as a contractor for the Commonwealth right now, being in a family welcome center, we have the challenge to, show to the families like this is the rest the places that you guys can go to different kind of services, and it still is a challenge with us doing like face by face. And the Commonwealth itself has a page on the mass.gov with all the resters. So I guess the question is, as an app, how you guys plan to do outreach for those families, like really to reach the person who are looking for a different kind of services.
Thank you so much. If someone from marketing or anyone else wants to talk, just let me know. But otherwise, I'll start this. Thank you so much for coming. I think we sent a lot of emails and didn't, it's so nice to actually have someone show up from the community. So I think that as we've been thinking about this tool, we've thought about it more and more for nonprofits instead of the end user being the person who's seeking aid. It's exactly people like you, and how do we make your lives easier when it comes to recommending resources and having them readily available. And so I think that we're hoping that you'll be part of that equation of reaching the beneficiaries, and more that it'll also be a way of us connecting you with kind of student power. And so one of the things that we've seen with some of the initial conversations we've had is that people often have the need for volunteers, but don't really have the capacity to sit there and organize, et cetera. And so we're hoping that this can be kind of a two-way street where it's not just about mapping resources, but also saying, well, how can we help? Do you need English language training support, or like mentorship for new arrivals who are similar ages as our students, a range of other interests. But on this, reaching the community, I think also I see some hands, and I know Reina's done some work on this. So let's see, I'll hand it over to a couple of who's
Hi. So I think that for the marketing team, we've really wanted to ensure that the relationship that's being built between Urban Refuge, migrants who are using the website, but also the organizations that will be listed on the website, that it's very interconnected. And so social media is going to be a huge part of that journey. We are currently trying to not only expand our presence on social media, but also use it as a tool to reach out to people, to inform people of different ways to get involved with these organizations. So not just Urban Refuge, but also saying, hey, this organization in Austin has volunteer opportunities. This is how you can get involved. So that's like a very important way that we're going to be able to reach out to people. Also building trust, I think, is a huge aspect of social media and how marketing wants to use our online presence, so that as we continue to build things through LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and potentially TikTok, we hope to foster deeper connections and really get people excited about engaging in Urban Refuge and also all of the organizations that are listed online. So having those conversations with people like you and your organization, and understanding how the different teams, but specifically marketing, can kind of uplift these goals and these needs that you guys have, and reaching out to schools and other communities within Boston.
Hi. So our team specifically also worked with like other organizations such as PAIR on like receiving information on how they provide other recommendations for different organizations that their clients can go to. It's really great to hear about the work that you're doing. Um, from the information that we retrieved from visiting that organization and speaking with other organizations, it seems like the usual go-to for clients is to provide them with referrals, but because the list is so limited and because sometimes those facilities already have a limited number of resources, this platform, we think, as we work towards working with other nonprofit organizations, to place an emphasis on them being able to see different organizations and services that they're not able to find just through referrals that they receive. So basically doing additional research as we're continuing to build the platform and the sort of data that's available on the platform itself, will be able to build the sort of referrals that these organizations, such as the organization that you have, to build the sort of referrals and information that you are able to provide your clients with on how we can help them. But yeah, I guess it's still a building block that we're going towards. But hopefully, we're hoping to build a platform to the extent where the referrals that are being provided to clients can be expanded to the point that they are able to access a range of different services.
I think, yeah, Reina, maybe you'll say something.
So I think this B2B2C model of working through the organization does make the most sense, and I think it's going to be very effective. During my time as CEO, though, we kind of did both. We did that us to organization to refugee. We also did work direct to the end client, and what we found to be most successful generally was going out not just to nonprofits that were working with refugees, but also to organizations like laundromats, libraries. I mean, really, those were the big two. But then we also found, especially in California, some coffee shops that were primarily focused on hiring and giving employment opportunities to refugees, and of course, schools. And that was how we really reached out to the community, because often people who have newly arrived in the country, very understandably, are nervous about government agencies and nonprofits and knowing who to trust. And that is part of what we're trying to solve. But everyone needs well, they don't need a lot, but libraries are extremely useful to the community in an area where refugees often, go for information, for resources that are in their own language as well. Laundromats, everyone does generally need a laundromat. And so those were real community staples that were used to working with these communities, had a rapport with these communities, and were very willing to support the people we wanted to support. So.
And the last thing I'll say, sorry, this is like you asked one question, you're getting like 10 responses, is that's why Boston initially wasn't our first location, is we thought, oh, well, there's already a wealth of knowledge around these resources in a different way than Amman or Istanbul is so gigantic. And, but we're finding that it's still really time consuming for the nonprofit partners that we're meeting, to refer these. And so part of that, I think, is going to be a follow-up from us of trying to understand where that blockage lies. And is it that it's because it's, in a website, everything is in English. It's not necessarily visually easy to navigate if you don't speak English, or what are the other kinds of challenges? And I think we've learned there's been so much, and that was the initiative of Cities funding, was actually all the interviews with all the nonprofits. And so one thing that became very clear from talking with nonprofits in Amman, in Istanbul, and in a whole range of other locations was everyone seemed to agree this was a good idea, but we couldn't figure out why it didn't exist yet. And I think that in us also kind of operating in that nonprofit space and thinking about donor relations, it was often like this was seen as an indirect kind of infrastructural investment, and they were much more that would be coordination across different nonprofits, and so it didn't really fall into the incentive of one or another to fully kind of establish something that's more infrastructural. So we've been having these conversations, and just thank you for coming, and thanks for that question. Other questions? Oh yes. So what was the original question for our tech team? Was yes, if you want to say anything about the hackathon and website development.
I just want to start off by giving a big thank you to everyone at the Urban Refuge team and especially Professor Lori for even giving us the opportunity to work on this project in the first place. Funnily enough, for one of our previous hackathon projects, we had a project that kind of like built a platform for local businesses, like empowering voices that aren't heard. And we just found it like, wow, there's another track at Boston Hacks that's similar to this, empowering the voices of refugees, being able to provide aid for them when they need it. And it's just an amazing opportunity to even work on this project as a whole. In terms of development, we want to talk about it?
I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah, so it was around a 24-hour hackathon when we kind of started the project, and it was we have Marvin here, and then also kind of we had another teammate, Wilson, who wasn't able to make it here today, but it was kind of a lot of group effort and kind of a lot of head scratching, making sure that we were able to present a final project that kind of would be able to be used by kind of everyone that needs that resource. So kind of through the development, we kind of were able to meet some of the Urban Refuge tech team. And kind of through that, we were able to figure out what we really wanted to build and kind of how we can build on this in the future. Obviously, the website is in a working state right now, but obviously we would want to expand it in the future, adding other resources and kind of adding other features that might help refugees and other people who need the website. So yeah.
Other questions or comments?
Hi, my name is Campbell and I'm a freshman, so I'm incredibly inspired by the amount of time and effort and work that you guys have been putting into this for nearly a decade. It's really incredible and I hope to be involved in this or something very similar in my time here. And yeah, so I have scanned the QR code. I will be involved in this. Anyway, my question is sort of two parts, which the first you touched on a little bit, which is that what was the impetus for the transition from the more global approach where you were focusing on working in cities abroad to focusing on Boston? And then where do you think you go from Boston now? Are you going deeper into Boston or are you going to extend this to other cities in the US, abroad? What's the plan from here?
Plan to do there to ask me this question. Thank you. So part of the impetus was actually just getting the organization, bringing it home in some ways, and realizing that if we focused on the Boston area, we could do field work. Whereas a lot of the other field work we had to do did involve the initiative cities and sort of taking flights or other grants to try to get there. So that was the first reason. The second reason we were or like next steps for me, I think it's very clear that bringing it back into the classroom setting is where it got this lifeblood. And also for me personally, like having it as part of my coursework. So it's something every week I have the time delegated to work on this project. But the hackathon was also game changing. And so one thing that we're thinking for the future is that this is a class that would be taught every fall, and that next fall we are going to try to organize a hackathon in either Beirut or Cairo or Istanbul at the same time and make it a simultaneous hackathon. My understanding, so the prize, the cash prize that came from the anonymous donor was on behalf of Major Hacking League. And so I knew nothing about hackathons until attending this one. But one of the things, my understanding from them, that how these often operate is that companies like Adobe, Microsoft, et cetera, will have new features. And so they'll say like, here, build a project that uses these new features in a cool way. And one thing you can graph those onto is like social impact lines. And so the idea would be, it's probably a good time to say, you know, Pardee is also going to have a Middle East and North Africa initiative launching. And so thinking about policy in different ways, I thought it'd be very cool to have a simultaneous hackathon with the students in Boston and students in one of those locations. And in talking with Major League Hacking, that could be a way that Urban Refuge adds a feature every year in a very structured way, and also goes back to the original interest in getting students to work across borders, and really thinking about how we can use technology to work on concrete things and not just, kind of have conversations or share media. So thank you for that question. Other questions?
Once again, thank you all for coming. When you make a script and then you think of things later, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I think to kind of collectively address everything that's been said since post panel, immigration is a moving target, right? The United States is one of the 3 leading countries that receives refugees, which evolves with changing administrations, which means that there's a lot more reliance on the service providers like Ian and like the Brazilian Works Agency is what, yeah. And so I think that what's really impactful about this project is that since we are on the ground doing it along with alumni and future students and stuff like that, we're able to see where the needs and the gaps are, which could essentially maybe in the future change policy as it relates to refugees and immigrants. And it also provides urgency for government agencies and policymakers, decision makers as it relates to refugees and immigrants. And when you have the people who are on the ground and able to deduce and strategize what is needed, since the burden is often transferred to service providers and just regular people like us. So thank you.
One thing, just because you guys are here and we're talking about the nonprofit, also Ian is right in front of you from IINE. One of the things that I'm curious whether it extends to a bunch of different nonprofits or ones that are particularly kind of focused on very vulnerable populations, so LGBTQI or domestic violence shelters or unaccompanied minor shelters. We found that there's what they want in a tech product is also something I know from the social science research. And there's a great book by Jeff Pugh, who teaches at Northeastern, called, it's about the strategic invisibility of certain migrant and minority groups, where you want to be able to be found, but also not found. And so those are why I think as we move forward, starting in Boston and building relationships with our own community here and asking for that kind of feedback of like, what can we build that supports you? And some of that support might be something like an incognito mode where you go off the map, or a layer that only certain people can see. So that's also part of the incentive of kind of working closer to home, is to have opportunities like that where we get to meet the people who are going to be partners for us. Other questions, comments? Okay, well, I'll just thank you again to Ashley from the Pardee School for organizing this event. Thank you to Stacy Fox and the Initiative of Cities. And I will say that seed funding is going to be announced soon for the spring, and that's for faculty and for students, and they're the best. And thank you again to Center for Forced Displacement. So we have plenty of snacks and drinks. Please stick around, and thanks for coming.